What's going on, everybody? Cody from Motorcycle MD. In this video we are continuing our full service maintenance job on this Honda TRX250. Last video we dealt with some runnability issues and things that it needed. This one we're going to just do a basic front brake drum service job. Okay, we got some brake fluid to do, and we gotta adjust the front drums so that they are functioning together, so you don't pull the brake lever and all of a sudden it turns to the left or the right. Pretty basic stuff, but we gotta knock this off the list as we go down and do everything that it needs. Fluids, valve adjustment, and everything else. So there should be some good stuff that you can take from this, as I don't just like to show you how to do something, but I wanna explain a little bit as to what you're doing. So if you are new to the channel, welcome. We do videos on motorcycle repair and all different types of stuff. As a Honda technician, I tend to see a lot of things come across the bench that I wanna share with you, and just to give you a little bit of insight on what it looks like for a professional to work on a unit rather than just some shade tree guy. So if you're into that sort of thing, be sure to subscribe. In the description, I actually have a course, 30 plus videos, just for joining the mailing list to get updates on when new videos come out. Videos in there that you can watch right now on how to work on your bike and do it consistently. Hopefully save you a little bit of money. Otherwise, hang out, enjoy this video as we tackle this TRX250 brake job. So a few quick checks I like to do before I put the four-wheeler up on the bench. Lift the front end up and just see how the braking is up front. We're trying to see the rate at which the tires stop in comparison to each other. You see here the front left kind of stops right before the right, which is fine because we're going to adjust that out later anyways. We can check some suspension components here, tie rod stuff. You know, we're not sending these things into space. They are off-road vehicles, so there is a little bit of play here and there. We're just looking for anything that's abnormal, I would say. And check the rear end out while we're here. Lift it up. A lot of times you get a lot of axle play on four-wheelers, especially race quads and that kind of stuff. A lot of clunking around when you go left to right like this. I'm also just checking for any kind of abnormal noise. I hear like a loud roaring from their differential. This all sounds good. There's nothing that sticks out. They are a little noisy, but that's fine. Alright, so now we're going to go in after the master cylinder and brake fluid situation. A lot of times what you'll find is someone might think that they have air in their system on these because it just squeezes all the way to the lever or close to. It could, but adjusting those drum brakes makes a huge difference in how much of feel you have here when it comes to the four-wheelers and the drum brake system. What I want to do first is just level this master cylinder out. I don't want to work with it on an angle. Just kind of make a note where it is so we can return it back there. For comfortableness for the customer, these Phillips head screws already look pretty gross. In any normal situation, we'd probably just strip them out. But let's see if we can get lucky. JIS screwdriver. One hit there. One hit there. A lot of pressure downward, and we cracked it loose. A lot of pressure downward. Cracked it loose. It's usually all it takes. If I was at the dealership working on this, I would probably replace these so that no one has to deal with that again. These are nice and rusted, but we don't have any here. They're still usable. I just clean them up and reuse them. And that's why, again, little things kind of add up when it comes to being at a factory shop, because we have the ability to make things nice again, you know? So what we're gonna do is grab a rag just to transfer this stuff right on over. It looks pretty clean inside of there. Usually these can get a little crusty. You can clean those up. Here's our skeleton plate, what I call skeleton plate. Helps keep the shape of this master cylinder seal, which we will replace. I replace these every time. Unless it's like the cup style. The cup styles last a lot longer, but these flat ones do not. Transfer that right over and throw it in the trash. We have no fluid in there. Here's our little splash plate thing here. Take that out. Yeah, there's no fluid. So first, look at a master cylinder with no fluid in it. Right, where has it gone? We have a couple of options. I mean, then this thing is on the brink of sucking in air. There's air bubbles coming out of this thing. So we have good pressure, right, up to about there. It does feel like there's some air in it now that I'm squeezing it. We got two pistons for the drum system on both sides. So two different things can be taking place. There is a leak going on at one of the cylinders. That could be a probability that we can't see because the drum is encased in a hub, or someone's been adjusting the drums, right, to get them to work without ever opening this up to check where the fluid level is. So as your drum pads or as your brakes wear, more and more space is removed, more fluid needs to get sent down the line to fill up that space so you still keep that pressure. Most cases when there's a big leak, if it's bad enough, you can push that leak out and it'll eventually just drain onto the floor out of the hub and makes a huge mess. But we have to now inspect this to see what's going on. Hopefully there's no leak inside the drum. Hopefully we can just fill this up, bleed it, and we'll be good to go. Let's find out. So we know both hubs are operational. This is actually the adjustment window right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look inside to see if it's wet. You know, if it's water, water evaporates eventually. It doesn't really stay wet looking, but brake fluid's a little bit different. So you can't see inside this hole because it's just way too small to get a camera in there. And I'm not going to take this off unless I have to. And I don't see any fluid on this left-hand side or an issue that there would be a leak at some point. I don't see anything. It looks a little crusty, not super clean, but it's not leaking. The other side is the same way. So I don't think that we have a leak issue going on. I think that we have someone who's just been adjusting the drums as they should be without refilling the master cylinder. For right now, that's how it appears, which is great. So on the back side of this, we have our bleed valve for that piston that sits there. I can just take these all off. It looks like it is a 10 millimeter. We're gonna try to just bleed this out. We have our one line right here. We have our one line going over there. Before we begin, let's just go ahead and know that we can break this thing loose. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Good to go. Awesome. Alright, so let's just find a spot for our brake bleeder 5000. Little hose, little oil bottle, and a nice tight fitting hose. Just gonna lop this tip off. We can start fresh on a nice tight fitting hose. Our bleed function, let's get a little more throw on this. This should be good. Ideally you want this to kind of travel downhill, but let's see if we can do that. Let me use my chair. Let's see. Using Honda's .4 brake fluid. I don't care what you use as long as it's .4. Alright, got her filled up. Crack that loose. Right there. So the fluid's not that bad. It's not that bad. I could use a Mighty Vac system, but honestly you can't beat a good old manual bleed. Apply pressure, open, close, apply pressure, open, close. Crack it open slightly, and then you can start to bleed pressure out. It sounds like our bleed valve is a little bit clogged. Yeah, there we go. That's working. Wide open. Close it off. And about 5 master cylinders through it. These don't hold very much, so 5 is good. Okay, now I'll do a manual bleed. Again, open, close, pump up, open, close, and continue this on. Lever feels really good right now. Rinse and repeat on the other side. Alright, adjusting the drums on your ATV. Very, very easy to do. This one seems like it might already be touching a little bit on one side. But the basic principle of how all of this stuff kind of works without needing to take this off. We have 2 shoes, what we call shoes, which are the brake pads, which open at the top and then contact this spinning hub right here. So when they contact this hub, this slows the wheel down. Okay? At the top, there is a slave cylinder or a brake fluid functioned piston. And it's pretty much in the shape of something like this, okay, if you just cut this tip off. So it sits up at the top and you have a piston that comes out this way and a piston that comes out this way and touches the brake shoes. So when you apply fluid to it, it pumps out these pistons, which then opens and spreads the brake shoes open to contact the pad. Now, if we go to the bottom, where this is your inspection hole, it has a little rubber cap over it, or it should. Hopefully yours does, otherwise your brakes are probably destroyed. At the bottom, there's the same type of thing, but it has like a metal star on both sides with teeth on it that you can spin counterclockwise and clockwise. And what that does is it mechanically moves 2 pistons in and outward. They're all threaded. That's why hopefully you have a plug in there, because if the threads are all rusted, then good luck. But we can actually adjust the bottom half of these shoes outward as well, right? So Oftentimes what happens is people think that they have a bunch of air in the line and they spend 2 bottles of brake fluid trying to bleed out a spongy or a long throw of that front brake lever on these, when really they just need to adjust the drums so that they're contacting faster. And because right now, if they're never adjusted, you pull that lever in, pull the lever in, pull the lever in, pull the lever in, and then finally they touch, you know? So you can make that adjustment down here, but you need to do it evenly on both of these. So, like I said, this one seems like it's kind of already maybe touching a little bit, but that's no problem. I'm going to bring them out so they're touching, and then we're going to bring them in slightly and do the exact same thing on the other side, and hopefully that will even the braking out. See that star right there? That's on the right-hand side, and that's on the left-hand side. Okay, it's pushing on the bottom of that brake shoe for the front one and the rear one. We'll call it the rear one. Okay, so as we turn that dial there and there evenly, we can make the shoes touch the drum, and then we're going to back them back off again. Okay, so we're trying to find that sweet spot. So which way do we spin the spirals, right? You can just find out by just starting to spin them and seeing if it shouldn't take you long to realize that you are spreading it out and touching this drum, because it'll just stop and lock up, right? But if you think about it kind of like this, we have a threaded portion hanging out. We're going to spin this spiral upward, right? Because it's righty-tighty. And that's going to draw this piston outward, right? I would like to say that it's the same for this side, so if you just flip this and then you can spin downward and still pull it out, but that's not the case. So because the fact that this direction we come up with it, the other one will be the same way. So you'll just, again, come up with the other spiral as well. That's to function this shoe and this shoe. So in this case, I believe if we just bring the star up, so using this as a fulcrum right down here and come up with it, we can get the shoe to touch. There it is right there, locked. That rear shoe is touching. So I'm going to back it back off so it's not. Okay, so let's come to this other side, do the exact same thing, just fulcrum up. It's touching right there. So it's the same for both sides. And now it's locked. So we're going to bring this back down. We use the top as a fulcrum. I don't like the hissing sound. That's pretty good. And I don't want to back it too far off of that. It's kind of where it was before. Another question you might have is, how do you know when the brake shoes are done? Noise. A lot of noise would take place because now you're metal on metal. But the only real way to know is by taking this drum off. And then in the manual there is a spec for the thickness of the braking material. Pop this castle nut off, pull this drum hub off. You might need to adjust your brake shoes in quite a bit so that they can pass the lip that might be on this thing from just being worn in. But then you would physically measure that brake pad material. We're not going to do this. On this one, I think that they are fine. You can also look down into the corner of this and you can actually see how thin the brake pad is. And the last thing I like to do before I put this tire back on is just clean up the mating surfaces. You see, this is where the rim kind of hits it. But rust can build up here, and I don't want it to jack up my torque spec. Oh yeah! Alright, once that's all done, we're just going to fill this back up to our full line, throw in our little splash pad, clean up the surface real quick so it's nice and dry. Got our brand new seal onto our clean pad here. Drop that on, clean our little plate up where the screws sit. It's actually a little over full. I'm just going to soak some of this up, drop that level down a little bit. Throw a little bit of grease onto these screws for the next guy. Lock them in. Then we'll do our final check on the ground. We'll rotate them again, apply the front brake, make sure they both stop at the same time. It's perfect. You can make your adjustments right here at this moment as well. Just pull those red caps back off and just adjust them to each other again.